Hey everybody, this is Scott Gustafson with Vital MX. Today we're at Kawasaki Motor Corporation. We've got our 2019 KX450 test bike, and we'd like to show you a couple tech tips that are unique to this bike that'll help you make life easier. Okay, now new for 2019 on a Kawasaki is a hydraulic clutch. It's the first time a Japanese manufacturer's had a hydraulic clutch on a motocross bike. So there's a couple maintenance things I want to show you. You're going to need to bleed the clutch periodically, check it for operation, and there's a couple easy steps. There's 3 methods I'll show you today. Okay, the first method is going to be easy. We're just going to show you how to get air out of the lines. The only tool you're going to need for that is a Phillips head screwdriver. You're just going to take the cap off the brake reservoir here. And it's also good to have the reservoir completely flat so you're not spilling any fluid. Now the first thing you'll do is just go down to your slave cylinder here, and you see your hydraulic line here. And what you'll want to do is you can just tap it. You just tap the line just to get bubbles out of the line. If there are air bubbles in here, they'll show up in the reservoir itself. Once you've done that, you can also go to your lever and just push it in and out real slowly. And if you don't see any air coming up, then you don't have any air in your lines. But that's the first method, really simple. Okay, the next method I'm going to show you is standard bleeding. It's just like you would bleed a front brake. So in order to do this, first I'm going to remove this engine guard down here so that I have a lot of access to the bleeder down here. You don't necessarily have to do this, but it does make it easier. I just need to remove the 2 8mm screws that hold this on. Essentially, I'm going to be bleeding fluid from the master cylinder here down to the slave cylinder and have fresh fluid come out of here. I've made a catch bottle with just a simple plastic bottle, a bit of carburetor hose, and an old coat hanger hook. And you can do that real simple. So I'm just going to attach it here. Sometimes you'll need to heat the end of this up just a little bit so that it fits on nicely. I'll just hang this right here. Okay, to do this bleed method, the first thing we're going to do is fill up the reservoir. Okay, once that's full, you're going to pump the lever, and when you hold it in, you're going to release your bleed valve down here. Okay, once you see clear fluid down here, you've replaced all of the fluid in your system with nice clean fluid, and you're ready to button everything up. Finally, just clean everything up with some contact cleaner, and that's method number 2. Okay, the final method I'm going to show you is how to back bleed the system. So essentially what I'm doing is putting fresh fluid in to the clutch slave cylinder down here and pushing fresh fluid up the line and into the reservoir on top. Generally, you're going to use this method when you're replacing the hydraulic line itself, or you have a lot of air in here, or you've let all the fluid out of your system. This is the best way to get new fluid completely into your system. So the tools I'm going to use or going to add to this are going to be 2 syringes, just a container to put the old fluid into, and of course my .4 brake fluid. Okay, I'll start by filling up one of my syringes. Then you're going to attach it to the bleed valve here. Okay, now when you put this vertical, you're going to notice that you've got some air bubbles here. Again, just like getting air bubbles out of your hydraulic line, just go ahead and tap this until you have nothing but clear fluid from the bleed valve all the way to your syringe. Okay, next I'm going to take my 10mm wrench and I'll open this up and press fresh fluid into the system. Now you can see it rise in the reservoir. Once it gets close to the top, you're going to shut your bleed valve, and you'll take your second syringe and drain off some of the excess fluid here. You're going to do this back and forth until you see fresh fluid in the reservoir. Once you have, and you don't see any air bubbles left, you know you've bled the system. A lot of the bleeding processes are very common for all bikes that have hydraulic clutches. The one thing that's pretty unique about the Kawi that KX450 owners need to be aware of, first of all, is the push rod here. It's recommended to never take the push rod out with oil in the engine. What happens here is the main shaft has a small hole in it, and engine oil can migrate into this space and come between the push rod and the slave cylinder piston right here. What ends up happening is you can, if you get fluid in between the two, you'll change the dynamics of the clutch. It can also cause a hydraulic lock. So there are a few things to be aware of with that. So don't pull your push rod out with engine oil in the bike. The next thing to be aware of is the fact that the piston on the slave cylinder is spring assisted. So if you leave it off, it'll just pop itself out. So what you'll want to do is you want to hold it in, pull your lever in, and then just tie your lever to the handlebar itself. You can just put a rubber band around there. That'll prevent the slave cylinder piston from popping out. But these are two things that are real critical for Kawasaki owners to be aware of. Okay, we've addressed a couple tips for your hydraulic clutch on your KX450. Hopefully you'll be able to do a few of these at the track, and hopefully you won't be stuck the night before a race if you do have a problem with your clutch. Luckily, this clutch is very, very reliable. I haven't seen any failures or anything with it, so, but I think over time they will require maintenance, and hopefully we've helped show you a couple things you need to know. If you like seeing these videos, let us know in the comments. And if you have a KX450 and you have a tip to share with us, please do so. We'd like to hear from you. Thanks a lot from Vital MX.